Hello there, Star Wars fans. Today I want to go over the Plagueis novel a bit more. I recently read it for the first time, and there are a ton of interesting segments that I'm just dying to talk about. Truly, it's amazing. And in a video a while back, I covered the time that Plagueis actually killed his master, Darth Tenebris. And today I want to go over how Plagueis was completely enamored and obsessed with Palpatine, before even learning how strong Palpatine was in the Force. Like, Plagueis thought maybe he had the Force, but just his political cunning and the way he acted. Plagueis was obsessed. It's an awesome story. But first, please do leave a like, please do subscribe. It helps me out a ton, and it means a lot. I love making this content, so let's get into it. The story, at the end for sure, gave me chills. And yeah, mostly due to the final part I'll be reading for you, but this whole thing is awesome. And one of the reasons this is important is because Plagueis at the time he despised the idea of the master/apprentice relationship with the Sith. He wanted to rule as the only Sith, so when he met Palpatine, someone who he could not sense the Force inside of, but someone he thought born for politics, Plagueis became obsessed. And as a Sith, Plagueis wanted to secretly rule the galaxy, along with that ferocious political face at the front of it all. And after many chats about politics, Plagueis truly began to dive deep into what the young Palpatine thought about the Republic and of Naboo and of the Jedi. Plagueis realized he'd struck gold when the Senate and the Jedi were brought up, and this was the conversation. So it's really interesting. So they're talking, and Palpatine kind of goes off on why he thinks things aren't always the way they should be, and he says, "That's because most beings are afraid to take charge. Think what the Republic Senate might accomplish under the leadership of a strong being." Plagueis responded, "I have given thought to that, Palpatine." And then Palpatine said, "What does the Senate do in response to each and every crisis? It dispatches the Jedi to restore order, and moves on without addressing the roots of the problem." Plagueis found the boy's youthful ignorance entertaining. Then again, Palpatine said, "The Jedi could rule the Republic if they wished. I suppose we should be grateful that the Order is dedicated to peace." Palpatine shook his head. "I don't view it like that. I think that the Jedi have dedicated themselves to limiting change. They wait for the Senate to tell them when and where to intervene and what to fix, when in fact they could use the Force to impose their will on the entire galaxy if they wanted. I'd have more respect for them if they did." That, to me, was extremely interesting, talking about the Jedi, the Senate, and ultimately that's the Jedi's downfall. They followed the Senate until the end. That was exactly what Plagueis wanted to hear. Someone who desperately wanted to take charge, but didn't have the means to do it himself, and just someone who thought someone stronger had to rule. Someone strong politically. Someone able to charm an unsuspecting government. And this was confirmed that Plagueis might be that person a bit later on, so much so that Plagueis wondered if Palpatine was Force sensitive. It was when the two were having a conversation and Palpatine had his usual charm, usual grace that he did, the fake face that he would put on for politics. And Plagueis thought, there it was again, the deceptive cadence, the use of flattery, charm, and self-effacement as unassuming, empathetic, and guileless, a youth with no desire to enter politics, and yet born for it. Tenebris had told him from the start that the Republic, with the help of the Sith, would continue to descend into corruption and disorder, and that a time would come when it would have to rely on the strengths of an enlightened leader, capable of saving the lesser masses from being ruled by their unruly passions, jealousies, and desires. In the face of a common enemy, real or manufactured, they would set aside all their differences and embrace the leadership of anyone who promised a brighter future. Could this Palpatine, with Plagueis' help, be the one to bring about such a transformation? Again, Plagueis tried to see deeper into Palpatine, but without success. The psychic walls the youth had raised were impenetrable, which made the young human something rare indeed. Had Palpatine somehow learned to corral the Force inside himself, as Plagueis had concealed his own powers as a youth? Around a month later now, after political conversations between the Palpatine family and the banking clan, which Plagueis was using to talk to the young Palpatine son. The conversations had broken apart, so Plagueis sought out the young Palpatine. He was still obsessed. He needed to know him more. So he got him aside and began talking to him. Palpatine began revealing his anger and hatred toward his family after revealing that he had been separated from Plagueis in their conversations, after finding out that his family was keeping him away from Plagueis. And Plagueis saw an opening here, an opening to finally get Palpatine to tell him what he wanted in life. This part is borderline scary, but it's so cool. I love it. This is the conversation. Plagueis asks him, "What do you want to do, Palpatine, if the choice was yours and yours alone?" The young Palpatine hesitated. "I don't want to live as ordinary beings live." Plagueis regarded him. "Do you fancy yourself extraordinary?" Palpatine seemed embarrassed by the question. "I only meant that I want to live an extraordinary life." Plagueis responded, "Make no apologies for your desires." "Extraordinary in what way?" Palpatine averted his eyes. "Why are you holding back?" Plagueis asked. "If you're going to dream, then dream large." Plagueis paused, then added, "You hinted that you had no interest in politics. Is that true?" Palpatine firmed his lips. "Not entirely." Plagueis came to a stop in the middle of the walkway. "How deep does your interest go? To what position do you aspire? Republic Senator? Monarch of Naboo? Supreme Chancellor of the Republic?" Palpatine glanced at him. "You'll think less of me if I tell you." "Now you underestimate me, as you do your father," said Plagueis. Palpatine took a breath and continued. "I want to be a force for change." His look hardened. "I want to rule." "There," Plagueis thought. "He admits it. And who better than a human to wear the mask of power while an immortal Sith Lord rules in secret?" "If that can't happen, if you can't rule, then what?" Plagueis asked him. And Palpatine ground his teeth together. "If not power, then nothing." Plagueis smiled. "Suppose I said that I would be willing to be your ally in the quest." That part, it's great. It reveals at such a young age the aspirations that Palpatine had, wanting to rule, wanting to be a force for change, and if not rule, then nothing. And Plagueis used this opening. But the two didn't fully trust each other yet, and in order to gain the trust of Palpatine, Plagueis told him a story about his own past. In this story, Plagueis messed with a genetic scientist that was running tests on his family to stop a genetic disorder that was actually killing the whole family at a young age. And instead of curing the family, Plagueis arranged for the scientist to make this genetic problem make it worse. And in turn, Plagueis' whole family was basically killed. Plagueis, like Palpatine, was largely a disappointment to his father and his family. So, he simply outlived them. After telling Palpatine this, Plagueis looked at him and said, "You must think of me as a monster." To which Palpatine replied, "You underestimate me, Magistrate." And that's the end of today's story, today's video. An early look into Palpatine, and it only keeps going from here. It's a crazy story, it's a crazy book, and I'm going to keep covering it. But once again, thank you for listening. Star Wars Galaxy YouTube channel. Loving what I'm doing here. Daily Star Wars community. Please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Did you enjoy this? Let me know, and I'll see you in the next video.